Welcome to WiseTake.com. This is CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And yes, we are bringing you another NBA DFS podcast. It is Wednesday, February 8th, 2017. And we've got a huge 12-game slate following up last night's 3-game slate. Not knocking last night. It was only 3 games, but it was exciting. And this is coming from a guy that missed cashing by about 5 points. And I have one guy to thank for me not cashing in the DraftKings $25 single entry double up. That guy is Sean Kilpatrick, who has officially made my list of never again in cash games. I will never play Kilpatrick again unless there's literally 6 players on the entire Brooklyn roster that night. He dudded me. I missed cashing in the double up by 5 points, and I think Kilpatrick had 6 or 7 DraftKings. I don't even know. It was horrible though. I know that. I know it was bad. He did nothing. Even when he was on the court, he did nothing. He got me going. But hey, Harden did his thing, and we saw. It was actually a pretty good slate. I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was thought it was pretty interesting there, and it was a good time. Also, while I got you here, before we go into the depths of the podcast, it is Wednesday, which means it is WiseTake Live Day. We're trying to get that going, so please do me a favor. Listen to this podcast. Come back to the YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in WiseTake, and you can see the logo right on the bottom right there. WiseTake on YouTube. Click on the channel, and you'll see the live stream. Come join us on the live stream. We have a good time. There hasn't been too many of us, but we try to get it in, and even if nobody's in there, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to keep talking. So hopefully that we have some update. We have a lot of injuries to get through today, and that's what I'm going to gear the podcast on, is the injuries, just because going position by position for 12 game, for a 12-game slate is just too much. And I'm not even going to cover all the good plays anyway, so it's like, plus you don't need me to tell you LeBron James in a good spot, or or whatever, or Embiid, or you don't need me to tell you those guys are in a good spot. You should know that already, right? So I'm going to talk about some guys that I like, of course, just because. But I think the injury is where we're going to go as far as this podcast. But come back to WiseTake Live. This way, if there's any changes or we have confirmation of any of these injuries none of these are confirmed yet. So maybe we'll have some confirmation by then, and I can talk about what I'm going to do with some of those plays, how I interpret that information, what I'm going to do to tweak my lineups, what I'm looking at next, what projections am I looking at. And I'm not telling you to listen to me necessarily. I'm just telling you, listen to what I'm saying. Listen to how I'm thinking. And then you can take and interpret the information yourself and make your own decisions for it, right? But it's good to hear how other players think. It's good to hear how other players interpret this information and process this information. And how, in what situation do you jump on this news? What situation is it not that big a deal? What situation is the matchup not worth it? What situation is the price not worth it? So come back to WiseTake Live. It's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And go to the YouTube channel, Google WiseTake. If you're a subscriber to this channel on YouTube, you won't have a problem. And if you're listening on Podbean, like I said, just go to youtube.com, Google WiseTake. If you're listening on iTunes, same thing, youtube.com, Google WiseTake, one word, and you will find the live stream on our channel. Anyway, so yeah, we got a lot to get through on the slate today. We got a lot of injuries, another sheet full of injuries. I'm not going to call it that again, though, but we do have another huge sheet worth of injuries to get through, and that's going to be the basis of our podcast, like I said, because on a slate like this, like I said, you don't need me to tell you the X and X is in a good spot. You should already know that by now. And one thing I wanted to say also, if I would have stuck with the WiseTake projections last night in my cash games, I would have done well. The highest projected players, including Vooch. Vooch was the highest projected center last night on the WiseTake projections, and he crushed it. So I will say again, especially on these smaller slates, you want to go as optimal as possible in your cash game. So if I would have relied more so on my own WiseTake projections, I would have definitely fared a lot better and gotten a higher lineup. So listen, in GPPs, I don't rely on the projection systems too much, not the actual projection. I do rely on the projection system, but what I rely on is I like to, if I'm deciding between one player or another in a GPP, I try to look at the projected fantasy points per minute, and that'll help me determine which one I think is a better shot based off who's going to get more run, I think, that night. So in cash games, though, you want to go optimal. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to go optimal. So in that case, just pull up the projection sheet and just go off the projections and see who projects the highest. Is it going to work every time? No. But in cash games, you're hoping to hit that projection and just that projection. In GPPs, you're looking for guys to surpass their projection, and you're looking to avoid guys that are going to go below their projection. But in cash games, it's certainly viable to just go optimal. So I think those projections, the actual projected numbers, the actual projected fantasy points that day, are solid to go by in cash games. They're very raw, so you still have to do your own work as far as matchup, yada yada yada. They are very raw. They're just raw. It takes into account pace. It does take into account the team's pace, so you can rely on that. But it doesn't take into account DVP, although we do have the DVP chart, so you can use that kind of hand in hand with it and make your decisions there. But that's it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Moving on to today. First injury, we got Amon Shumpert is questionable with an ankle against Indiana. We could see maybe McRae or Liggins get some run there. I don't know for sure. Maybe even Korver. We could see Korver jump in that starting lineup. Thad Young is questionable with a wrist. We've seen Lavoy Allen take his place, and Lavoy's been getting the minutes. His price is up to 4K on DraftKings, but he has been getting the minutes. The first time he played I think 32 minutes, and he crushed. He had over 40 fantasy points, but he took a lot of shots that game, and that just hasn't been the case. And in his last game, that just wasn't the case. I'm going to try to pull him up just to kind of show you what I mean a little bit here. So yeah, he's 4K on DraftKings. Looking at his log, so against Detroit, he played 32 minutes. He took 15 shots. He was 8 for 15, and that's how he got 42.75 DraftKings points. In his last game against Oklahoma City, he still played 30 minutes. However, he only shot the ball 4 times. He was 1 for 4, 2 missed free throws too. Throw that in there, and he only got 16.25 DraftKings points. So obviously, Lavoy Allen has shown us that he's not exactly a lock. Do I think he's in play against Cleveland? I guess. I mean, it should be a faster paced game. They're home, and he should. If Thaddeus Young is out, he should still see this 30 minutes. If Thad Young plays or not, I'm not crazy about Thad Young. Let me get that out the way. I think he's okay. I think he's okay. He just doesn't have the upside that I'm looking for today. But if he's out, Lavoy Allen at 4K, I don't think I would lock him in my cash games necessarily, just because he's shown us what his new floor is. But I certainly think he's a viable play, and he may make the cash lineup. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I'm just saying right now he's not popping out to me like, oh, this guy's definitely going in there. I'll consider him. But you're going to have to really consider him and really dig, especially because he's a big man, and Cleveland, they're pretty good at collapsing down low. And this is not a stretch forward. This is a bigger guy who stays down low. He doesn't shoot threes or anything like that. So that's not exactly, that kind of plays into the strengths of Cleveland, because the way you beat Cleveland is by draining threes. That's how you beat Cleveland. Ball movement, drive to the hole, penetrate, kick it out to a three-point shooter, pop. That's how you beat them. Hence Golden State. But anyway, moving on. Kawhi Leonard is questionable with a quad against Philly. If Kawhi plays, he's in a pretty good spot, obviously. But if Kawhi doesn't play, I think you can look at LMA as a guy to step up and crush there. Embiid is also Embiid is questionable with a knee. I heard somewhere else that he's not even on injury report, but I see him on the injury report that I look at, and he's questionable with a knee. If he plays, obviously, that's going to get me way off of Illy and Noel, but not that I was too big on those guys anyway against the Spurs. I really wasn't. Not on a 12-game slate with a bunch of other more attractive games. But it's worth mentioning, Embiid's obviously a great player, and without Gasol, I think Embiid's in a pretty good spot. He'll either match up with Nerlens Noel. I'm sorry, no, that's his teammate. He'll either match up with LMA, Dedmon, possibly David Lee, and none of those guys I'm too concerned about. LMA would be a little bit of a tougher matchup, but not for a guy like Embiid, I don't think. So I think he's certainly in play. The question is, do you want to take a guy that's coming back after an injury after missing a few games? So that's the decision that you're going to have to make. I personally am probably going to stay away from this game in general. I don't typically like targeting guys against the Spurs, to be honest with you. And lately, even the Sixers have been playing pretty well, so I don't necessarily know if I want to target too many guys against them. Now, if Kawhi is out, then yeah, I'll lock in LMA and cash, just because his usage is going to be ridiculous. Anyway, Moutier is questionable with a back against Atlanta. Kenneth Faried is also questionable for personal reasons against Atlanta, and Gallinari is out with a groin against Atlanta. On the other side of the ball, Thabo is questionable with a groin versus Denver. So we'll start off with Moutier. If Moutier is out, I think you can consider Jameer Nelson again. Now, there's so many solid point guards that I don't know if I'll be able to pull the trigger, but his price did come back down. Jameer Nelson is now, I think, 4.4 on DraftKings, and that's a pretty fair price for a guy that could get minutes. Now, obviously, if Moutier plays, then you don't go anywhere near Jameer Nelson, and I think Moutier might play. I think he's probable in this matchup. I don't know for sure. He's listed as questionable, but I think he might play. If Moutier plays, I don't want Moutier. I don't want a guy coming back from injury like that. And I think there's just too many other point guards to target. Don't get me wrong. I love targeting point guards and shooting guards against Atlanta. I do. I really do. But in this situation, I don't necessarily know. On the other side of the ball, I think that Schroeder's in a really good spot today, and I really like his price. I know he hasn't been lately. I don't know why. I guess he hasn't been as consistent as we're looking for. But he's 6K on DraftKings, and yeah, okay. So he hasn't really been consistent lately, but I think he's in a fair spot. Now there is some concerns with his minutes lately. He played 30 against Utah, but only 26 against Orlando and 21 against Houston, 26 against Miami. So I think that has a lot to do with why. But then again, those games were all after the New York four overtimes where he played 55 minutes. So this could be a way to kind of balance that. I don't know. But Schroeder's in a great spot at 6K. I told you that mid tier on the point guard. Point guard in general is obviously always loaded, but that mid tier especially is super loaded today. But if Moutier is out, I think Jameer is a decent play at 4.4. Kenneth Faried, what we saw with Kenneth Faried, he missed the last game, and we saw Barton enter the starting lineup, and we saw Barton just completely go ham and just smash. Now, Barton does that because Barton likes to chuck up shots. He's not going to wait to set up a play. He's just going to shoot. When he gets that ball, he's going to shoot. So if Faried is out and Barton is in, I think you can look towards Barton, especially in a matchup against Atlanta, especially if Thabo is out. Thabo is questionable. He's missed a bunch of games. We'll see if he plays or not. Thabo's one of their better defenders, so I think it's going to be interesting whether he plays or not. I think it does make a little bit of a difference. With Gallinari out, I want to look at Chandler again. He should see extensive run here. He didn't get too many minutes against San Antonio the other day, but that was because it was a blowout. If you watch the very next game, I think it was against Dallas, he played 40 minutes and he got 37 DraftKings points. So I definitely think he is certainly in play, especially if Thabo is out. I do have some concerns a little bit. If Faried plays, then obviously Faried will play the 4, Chandler will play the 3. I like that better. I much prefer that because I don't want to have to worry about Chandler on Millsap. If for any reason Chandler has to play the 4, I don't necessarily like that. I think Chandler can still do his thing. I'm just concerned. Millsap's obviously he's not a bad defender, and he's a big dude. And, I think Chandler's going to have to rely a little bit more on creating his own shots, things like that. But yeah, if Thabo is out and Chandler plays the 3, I think this is a tremendous spot. And also, another thing about Atlanta, at the beginning of the year, they were a slower-paced team. They're not anymore. They're really not a slower-paced team anymore. They've been playing pretty fast lately, in fact. And if Thabo is out, you can look at, I think you could, once again, you could look at Hardaway, who's been playing phenomenal lately. I'm not concerned about the Denver wing defense here. So I think Hardaway, you can certainly go to him. It's a pace-up spot for him, and he's been playing extremely well. He's 5'7". He's not going to kill you. He's in that mid-range. Even with Thabo out, we still haven't seen the extensive minutes that I think we were all kind of waiting for. But then again, they were just in 2 games that were massive blowouts. So I think he could see a bit of a better run, maybe at least hitting 30 with Thabo out of there. If Thabo plays, it might deter me from taking a guy like Hardaway, to be honest with you. But on the Denver side of the ball, Harris is in a good spot. Jokic, obviously. Jokic is in a tough spot. I'll talk about him real quick just because the guy's so freaking popular. He's in a tough spot against Howard. However, the things Jokic can do, I know Howard cannot keep up. If Jokic is running that point, Howard don't want nothing to do with him up there. When he's bringing up that ball and he's doing it, Howard's not going to want nothing to do with him up there. So I think there's still merit in playing Jokic, and his price actually came down. I think his DraftKings price is 8.7, and I think that's an adjustment for his recent performance as well as his matchup. But at 8.7, I think he's worth considering for sure, definitely. And GPPs, of course, because I think it'll be a bit of a contrarian play. I think there's so many good spots today that he may not be as chalky as he has been lately. Despite the fact that he is the GOAT. Anyway, moving on. Andre Drummond is listed as probable. I would imagine he's going to play. It says undisclosed. It never even told me why he was probable. But anyway, Drummond's in a great spot against the Lakers. Phenomenal spot. I'm not going to let the Lakers fool me because they crushed the Knicks. And no, I'm not just a bitter Knicks fan. Well, I am, but I'm not saying this as a bitter Knicks fan. The Lakers are not that good. The Knicks just played that bad. They really did. They played that bad. They were probably better off with Jennings staying in the game and Rose not coming back that day. I'm not saying going forward, but that day they probably should have left Rose out and stuck with their guy, Jennings. But yeah, I think Detroit can come out. I think they're a pretty good team to target today. Lakers are a great team to target against typically, and I think it's no different today. Drummond's in a phenomenal spot. Great spot for Drummond. I'm not exactly sure what his price is. I'm going to look that up right now. I kind of forgot to check that out. Let me see. Drummond is 8.6. He's expensive, so you're going to pay for it. But he is in a phenomenal matchup. On the flip side, I think Zubac, Tyreek Black, and these guys, if you can figure out the center position, it could be okay. But with the Zubac, he's 17 minutes against New York, 4 against Boston. You can't really rely on that. Obviously, I think Tyreek Black is interesting. He'll probably get around 20 minutes or so, and he's capable against Drummond. But Drummond's the guy I think you want here as far as centers in this game. I think Drummond's the guy obviously you want. So he's in a smash spot, but he is expensive. I think Reggie Jackson's in a very good spot at 5'9", and I even think I really like Marcus Morris. His price is up. I don't think I want to pay $6K for him. I don't know for sure. I don't think I want to pay for him. Well, pretty much all Detroit, even Tobias Harris and Lure are in great spots today. But Marcus Morris, I want to talk about real quick, just because Ingram has been named the starter, I believe, going forward. So Ingram, who's 165 pounds soaking wet, is going to try to cover Marcus Morris. So I think Marcus Morris, if he wants to have a good game, and I say that because it seems like with Marcus Morris, when he wants to have a good game, he can. But if he doesn't have to, if other guys are doing their thing, and he doesn't have to, then he won't. So I think he's an interesting tournament option, but at 6K, he is kind of expensive. I just like to target guys against Ingram. Let's see. Moving on, Quincy AC and Karis LeVert are both doubtful against Washington. The only thing I'm going to say here, I mentioned how I hate that whole situation with Brooklyn. I hate when I have no choice but to play those guys because it's not like, think about how hard it is to make a decision between Hernan Gomez and Kyle O'Quinn, right? That's just 2 players. Now imagine a scenario where you have to decide between 9 of them. Bogdanovich, Kilpatrick, Hollis Jefferson, Carousel, all these guys can not go off, but all these guys can be the one to step it up, aside from Brook Lopez, right? So it's just annoying to try to figure out which one it is because you don't know, and it's going to be a different guy every night. I haven't figured out the formula, I haven't figured out the method, and it's very frustrating. Now, I will say that even though this seems like a great smash spot for Washington, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cleveland and Washington both come out a little sluggish in this spot. I wouldn't be surprised. We see it all the time when teams have these huge, emotional, highly intensive, awesome games that are being nominated for Game of the Year, which it was. I'm not taking anything away. Definitely think it was Game of the Year. But we see the teams come out, especially in overtime, we see the teams come out the next game and kind of play flat, especially a situation like Cleveland where they're still on a road trip. But even for Washington, listen, do I think Brooklyn's on a back end of a back-to-back? They'll probably get smashed here. But it's just something to consider. I wouldn't be surprised to see them come out a little sluggish. Or, of course, they can come out swinging, win by 50 points because they're pissed that they lost. So that's an option too. But anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time because I really don't like talking about Brooklyn. Dion Waiters is questionable with an ankle. And from what I understand, he left the game. He finished the game, but I think he left the game in a boot. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him sit out this game. And if he sits out this game, I think you could look at Tyler Johnson, who should get I would assume would get the start in his spot. I think you can look towards Dragic, obviously, whose usage should get a significant bump because we've seen Dragic is still he's a great player. He's still a great play from game to game, but we've seen his usage kind of take a little hit with Dion Waiters coming in and just chucking a bunch of shots. So I think Dragic becomes a solid play at 75, even though the matchup isn't necessarily the greatest. I'm not too worried about Brogdon and Dellavedova. I think Dragic can hold his own. Tyler Johnson, 5,300. James Johnson, these guys their usage is going to go up. Even Hassan Whiteside, as much as it pains me to say it, all these guys become better plays if Waiters is out. Now, if Waiters plays, I'll probably just play Waiters in cash because, like I say, every podcast Waiters is on, he said he's going to keep shooting. So if you make a statement to me that you're going to keep shooting, I'm going to keep playing you. So I have a feeling Waiters is going to be out, though. If he left the game in a boot, that's not a good sign. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him miss. And if he misses, I will be taking a look at Tyler Johnson, Dragic, Whiteside, and James Johnson and trying to figure out which guy I think is the best guy to go with, not just based off their matchup, not just based off their usage, but also based off the slate. Because you need a little bit of, you have to think about it. How is it going to work in your slate? If I take Dragic over Johnson, how is that going to affect my lineups? If I take Whiteside over Dragic, how is that going to affect my lineups, right? So we got to consider those things. On the other side of the ball, Hawes and Hibbert are both probable. I guess they're both expected to play against Miami. I'm not crazy about either of them. Chris Middleton's going to get, he's supposed to get 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I'm not going to play the guy, but I think it's going forward, it's a little interesting, and I'm very curious to see what that does to Jabari and Giannis's usage, because right now those two are like the guys, but Middleton can ball a little bit, so I wouldn't be surprised that once he starts getting his full run, I wouldn't be surprised to see him take a little bit of usage away. So it's interesting to pay attention there and see what happens, not necessarily today, but going forward in general. Rodney Hood is out against New Orleans. Tyreek Evans is questionable on the New Orleans side against Utah. I'm not crazy about the Pelicans in this spot just because I don't like targeting guys against Utah. On the Utah side, though, I think George Hill's in a great spot. He's in a great price. And that's what I was trying to tell you with that tier, man. That tier is it really is just, it's pretty solid. I mean, let me see. We're talking about the Utah. I don't know if, there it is. Okay, I found it. So, yeah, so George Hill is 6'1". His price did go up a little bit. I mentioned the other day when he was going that he was super, super cheap, and he came through at 44 DraftKings points against Atlanta. And I think you can go to the well again. Like I said, this mid-tier is super deep. It's a pace-up spot big time for Utah. And I like Gordon Hayward in this spot a lot, especially with Rodney Hood out. These guys got to pick up their usage. I'm not crazy about Ingles. He doesn't do enough for me. But I certainly like these guys. I think Gobert's interesting because I think they're going to need him on the court. Again, with Brow out there, they're going to need him. So I think all these guys are all the Utah guys are certainly in play. Certainly worth considering. Let me see. Oh, real quick, I just want to talk about Brow while we're in this game. So Anthony Davis is only 9.9. He's under 10K. So I don't like this spot. I don't like this matchup, I should say. I don't. But in GPPs, if you're doing multiple lineups, you might want to throw him in one or two just because that price is so cheap. And his raw projection, even with, and I remember the projections at WiseTake.com do take into account his pace matchup, right? We do take into account how fast both teams play and try to figure out how many opportunities he should see based off his projected minutes. And he's still the second highest projected player on our system behind LeBron James. And he is significantly cheaper on DraftKings than LeBron James. So just keep that in mind as a flyer. I don't like targeting guys against the team either. Trust me. I don't like playing guys against Utah either. I don't think anybody does. But a guy like Anthony Davis at this price, you may have to consider the guy. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Patrick Patterson's questionable with a knee. That doesn't do much for us. Levine, man. Oh, that's just terrible. CP3 is obviously out versus New York. Joakim Noah is questionable with a hamstring against the Clippers. Let's talk about this real quick. So if Noah plays, I think Noah's price is super attractive. Honestly, I don't think he's going to play. They've been cautious with him pretty much all year. So I would not be surprised at all to see Noah sit again. I hope he sits again, because if he sits again, that brings us back to the Hernan Gomez, Kyle O'Quinn part. Now, this is interesting. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I am going to take a shot on this. I'm going to take a stance on this whole thing. Listen, in GPPs, I'm going to have exposure to both these guys, but Hernan Gomez isn't so much of a discount anymore. He's 5'9 now. So it's kind of like we talked about with Yogi, where at a certain point, Yogi becomes a decent play, but at his price at 6K, he's no longer like an elite play. And I think it's the same thing with Hernan Gomez. I think he's a solid play with Noah out, but I think at 5'9", he's not necessarily an elite play, if that makes any sense. And one thing I've noticed with the Knicks is they seem to put Hernan Gomez in when there's no real physical dominant center in the game, right? So hypothetically, if Noah is out, I think Kyle O'Quinn, who is also power forward eligible, mind you, he's power forward and center eligible on DraftKings. He's 4'1". I think he's going to be the guy the Knicks go to, and that's because they're going to have a matchup with DeAndre Jordan, who's a big physical center. And I think that Hornacek is going to be concerned that Hernan Gomez gets bullied down low. Now, think about it. When the Knicks played Atlanta, Hernan Gomez was not going to play. It was Noah and KO. They both fouled out, and that's the only reason Hernan Gomez got any minutes in that game. He was not going to play. He was going to get a DNP. But when the both other centers fouled out, he had to play. I would not be surprised to see. We saw Hernan Gomez get his run last time. We know Kyle O'Quinn and Rose. That's the pairing that Hornacek seems to like, and Jennings and Hernan Gomez. That's the pairing Hornacek seems to like. But in this situation, I would not be surprised to see. And a Kyle O'Quinn at 41, you can take that chance anyway at 4,100. I would not be surprised to see Kyle O'Quinn be the guy who gets the run. Now, if he gets in foul trouble, that negates everything. They're going to have to put Hernan Gomez, which would make me think that DeAndre Jordan is in a smash spot, which he potentially is. But just want to throw it out there. I might take a stance here, and I might ride with Kyle O'Quinn over Hernan Gomez. And it's simply because I've noticed when we saw against Atlanta, that's just one example. We've seen it all year. That was one example. Against Atlanta, they stuck with O'Quinn and Noah. They wanted the physical guy. And Kyle O'Quinn, in my opinion, is a little more physical. I think he's heavier. He's a little stronger than the young Hernangomez. So I do like Kyle O'Quinn a little more. I'm just going to state that. I'm going out on a limb. If I'm wrong, you could bash me. It's fine. But that's just a hunch. I don't know. I didn't hear anything. I didn't read anything. It's just a hunch. While we're on this game, though, I think that Austin Rivers is interesting. He's been the talk of trade rumors going to New York. I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of show up here. Melo is very interesting today just for the fact that this is a team that he could potentially get traded to. It could be like an audition for him. It could be a very emotional game for him. And the third guy I want to talk about is Blake Griffin. I think, Redick is also in a pretty good spot. That's just because the Knicks are bad against twos. But I think Blake Griffin is just the nuts in this spot. He's going to be playing in New York, which a lot of these star players like to play in New York. They like to play in the Garden. They like the atmosphere. They like, New York's obviously a huge basketball city as far as like basketball fans. Obviously, the Knicks have not been very good. But yeah, I think Blake Griffin is in a phenomenal spot. He's going to have KP on him. I think he's way too physical, way too strong for Kristaps Porzingis. On the same note, I don't necessarily mind Porzingis. I don't think I'm going to go there against Griffin. But Porzingis I think he could be a little sneaky today. But anyway, I do like Blake Griffin a lot, and I do like DeAndre Jordan a lot if Noah is out. If Noah's playing, I don't like him so much. Because Noah, hey, listen, man, even though he just stands there, and he'll lean up on you, he'll get up on you, he'll make you feel really uncomfortable. So now listen, if Noah plays, I think that Kyle O'Quinn is still in play because I think he's going to be the backup. I really do. So Hernangomez at 5'9", I don't know. Am I going to have some exposure to him? Yeah, he's been playing so well lately, I have to. But I think I might have more exposure to Kyle O'Quinn. And O'Quinn might be the guy I stick in my cash game. But we could talk about that on WiseTake Live tonight. Wink, wink, right? Also, I think Derrick Rose is interesting at 5'5". He's only 5'5". I didn't want to play him in his first game back. But this second game back, we're going to have him against either Felton or Austin Rivers. I'm not afraid of either of those defensive matchups. Interesting to note, Raymond Felton has been on the Knicks twice. So I don't think this is necessarily a revenge spot because Felton seems to be a journeyman. He kind of just goes wherever. But you could go there. You could potentially go there. So keep that in mind with if you want to play the revenge narrative in GBPs, you could take a shot on Felton. I wouldn't. I think his price is too high, but you could. He has played in New York 2 different times. He played for the Knicks. So we didn't want him. We didn't like him. A lot of the Knicks fans never liked him. A lot of the Knicks fans used to call him fat and all this other stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a little mad and play a little with some extra aggression out there today. I'm not going to be playing him, but I'm just letting you know. Anyway, Jimmy Butler's questionable with his heel contusion against Golden State. This game is super interesting. I really don't know. Draymond Green is questionable with a knee against Chicago. Zaza is supposed to be out, and Zaza and West are both supposed to be out. So I think McGee is in consideration. I'm not crazy about him just because even with these guys out, he's not getting run. Now, if Draymond is out and Zaza is out and West is out, they're going to have to play McGee. So I think McGee is very, very interesting at that point. I do think Draymond will end up playing just because he doesn't strike me as a guy who likes to miss games. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him play. But let's see, JaVale McGee, 3,400. And listen, the only way I'm going to play this dude on a slate like this, on a small slate, yeah, I'll take a shot with him. But on a large slate like this, the only way I'm playing this guy is if both Draymond, Zaza, and West are all out, which I don't think is going to be the case. I think Draymond might play, but that's the only way I'll consider him. And even then, you don't know what they're going to do. You don't know if he's going to be the guy they give the run to. So it's tricky. But if Draymond is out, I think you can look at guys like Steph Curry's in a great spot anyway, but he's 10K. He's no longer cheap. That little discount we were getting on him is gone. And we're waiting on a line here. Both have been playing a lot better lately ever since their implosion, but this is Golden State. And Curry's in a great matchup. None of the point guards in Chicago are going to be able to contain him. I think that Wade's matchup gets a little tougher with Klay Thompson. If Butler is out, Kevin Durant is in a smash spot, especially here's the thing. If Butler's out and Draymond are out, you kind of have to lock in Kevin Durant in cash games and just let it ride. He's only 9.7 anyway. If Butler plays, then I think I'm shifting more towards Steph Curry, especially if Draymond is out. If Draymond plays, I don't think I really like anybody. Maybe Draymond will be the guy because they're missing centers. I think Draymond can get some run at centers. So if Draymond plays, I like Draymond. If Draymond doesn't play and Jimmy Butler plays, I like Curry. If Draymond doesn't play and Jimmy Butler doesn't play, I like Durant. Does that make sense? A lot going on there. I know, a lot of moving pieces, but that's real quick. Finally, I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was this Boston game, which I think is one of the most interesting games, storyline-wise, of the night. Avery Bradley has been downgraded to expected to miss with his Achilles. So if he is out, IT2. And I'm going to rant real quick. I know I'm at the 30-minute mark. Real quick. So my problem here is that IT2 is in a smash spot. Complete smash spot. I love IT2. Big revenge game. He always gets up in Sacramento against the Kings. I would expect him to go out there and just completely smash. I expect IT2 to have an incredible game if Bradley is out. Now, Boogie is suspended. And that was kind of disappointing to me because I feel like the only way IT2 is really going to maximize that upside and hit his ceiling is if this game stays close. And I'm a little bit concerned of the blowout. We don't know what the line is yet because we're still waiting to hear if Bradley's playing, etc. But I am a little bit concerned about a blowout potential. But I really like IT2. I want to play him in everything. I really, really think he's going to go out there and just smash today. He's probably my favorite stud today. Again, I'm concerned. Pay attention to the line when it comes out because I am concerned about the blowout. Because they don't have Gay, they don't have Boogie, so they're going to be relying on Matt Barnes. They're going to be relying on these little guys like Kufis, Tolliver, or whatever, and they're all in play. Don't get me wrong; they're all value plays. If you want value, I think you can look at the Kings. But the guys that I'm going to be looking at more so will probably be like Lawson and Collison. They're both in that mid-tier range. But they both should see significant usage increases without Boogie. So that's probably where I'm going to – and Temple is still out. So if that's the case, that's probably where I'm going to go. I think you could really find some value in this game with Tolliver, Kufis, and those guys. If you can figure out which way – Willie Cauley-Stein, if you can figure out which one of those guys is going to get the run. And remember, just because they're starting doesn't mean they're going to get the run. We've seen that, right? Kyle O'Quinn the other night, he started. He ended up only playing like 15 minutes or something like that. So we do got to pay attention, but – I love Isaiah Thomas today. I really do. I'm hoping that Vegas comes out and thinks this game is going to be close. I'm concerned because the Celtics are a pretty good team, and without Boogie, even with Boogie, the Kings aren't that great of a team. So imagine them without Boogie. So I am a little bit concerned. But if this game, if I end up thinking this game will stay close enough, even if the spread is even if it's going to be like a 7-8 point spread, I might have to load up on IT2. Is the matchup against Collison ideal? No. But is the matchup against IT2 in a revenge spot? IT2 just said like a few weeks ago that he believes he's the best player in the NBA. The Kings gave up on him. He was on the Kings. The Kings just gave up on him and traded him off for Rondo. So IT2 is going to – he always has a chip on his shoulder anyway, and if Avery Bradley's out, he's going to come out here swinging. Again, I'm a little concerned about the blowout, but I do like IT2, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it. So anyway, that's going to wrap up our breakdown today. Again, we talked about a few guys, but I more so wanted to talk about the injuries because I think that's more significant to this particular slate. We know LeBron James is good. He's good every day. His matchup might vary a little bit, but his projection is still going to project for pretty much the same. So anyway, if you're not a member of WiseTake.com, please sign up. It's free membership. You get access to our free projections. All of our free NBA tools are up there, and our forums. We're trying to get that going. I'm going to run a contest soon out of that forums to get you guys posting. But yeah, membership's free, so sign up. Don't forget, WiseTake Live is coming back tonight at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Go to the YouTube channel, Google WiseTake, and then you'll find the stream there. Or there's a chat feature in there too. You can ask me questions live. Listen, for the podcast going forward, for tomorrow's podcast, tweet me today, tweet me tonight. Ask me some questions. I'll put it to the side, and then I'll ask it on the pod. I'll answer them on the podcast. And you can tweet me at CK_013, or you can tweet the WiseTake channel at Wise_take. That would probably be the best way if you're asking questions regarding the podcast. Of course, you can always ask me in the forums too. That's completely fine. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate it. If you're listening on Podbean, give us a follow. Give us some feedback. If you're listening on iTunes, please subscribe to the channel. Rate us highly or rate us at all. If you don't want to rate us high, that's fine. Rate us low. Rate us. Give me some feedback. I want to know how you guys think of the show. I want to know how I can improve the show for you. Anyway, that's going to do it for me here at WiseTake. And we got a 12-game slate. And I am going to wish you good luck, but I'm going to see you later. So I'm hoping that I see you guys later tonight at 5:30 on the WiseTake Live channel. With that said, until 5:30 Eastern, as always, good luck.